Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. This is the fourth episode of my Fantasy Caro Kann Masterclass. The move which we will be examining today is the move pawn to g6 from the black side. This is known as the fianchetto variation. As always, the PGN file is the first link in the description. And without further ado, let's begin this episode. So here we play the move knight to c3, bishop g7, bishop e3, and this is the position we will reach like 99% of the time. This is the first branching point, and black can play this in three fundamentally different ways. Okay, either black will play queen to b6, right? This is now known as the poisoned pawn variation, looking to take on b2. Another option is knight to f6. And the final option is to play d takes e4. So we're going to look at all these three options. Let's begin with the move queen to b6. So holding on to this pawn never makes any sense. Okay, it's much better to give up this pawn and then end up playing rook b1, taking control of the b file, gaining a bit of an initiative. So for this reason, we play queen to d2, queen takes b2, we play rook b1, queen a3. In this position, we play the move e takes d5, and what seems to be the correct move, c takes d5, is actually a huge positional mistake. Why? Well, the c6 pawn is currently controlling this very important b5 square. The second this pawn moves, this gives us an entry point for our knight to enter. Right? For this reason, knight f6 is actually the correct move. Definitely not intuitive if you don't know what to do. So let's look at c takes d5. We play knight to b5. Okay, we're threatening the queen. We're threatening c7. The best move in this position is to take on a2. And here we play a very, very important computer move. The move is rook to b3. Okay, why rook to b3? Well, what we are really looking to do is to box this queen in. Okay, very often we'll play knight to a3 and we'll find a way to play some rook a1, rook b1, and basically just trap the queen. Let's not forget, we're also threatening knight c7 check, which is a fork. Let me show you some ways in which you can trap the queen. If black plays queen a1 check, we can simply bring our king to f2, that's not a problem. Knight a6, right, defending against the threat of c7. Knight to e2, bishop d7, we play knight a3. This is a very, very common move, right, securing, tightening the box. Knight to f6, knight to g3, and already we are threatening to play something like bishop takes a6 because the knight is defending the rook. This is why it was so important to bring our knight to g3, otherwise black could simply take our rook. Short castles, we take on a6, the queen is most likely going to be lost, it has simply no squares, this is completely winning. So this is what you can do against queen a1 check. You can simply slide your king and really look to open up the rook. Instead, black can play the move knight a6, immediately addressing this threat. Here we can once again bring our knight back, right, securing the box. Once again, if queen a1 check, we simply move our king and we can literally go for the exact same thing. Another thing we could do though is after short castles, we can also play g4 followed by bishop g2. Right, this is another way to defend the rook. And the advantage of playing g4 is that once we get bishop g2, queen a2, we can bring this knight to c1. This is very, very nice. We're bringing another piece to attack this queen. Queen a1, pawn to c3, and finally, after something like bishop to e6, we can play knight d3, and all of the queen squares are taken. Black has to sacrifice the queen for the rook. Bishop takes h1, we're like plus 3.5, plus 4, this is completely winning for white. One final way this can develop begins with black playing king d8. This is another way of getting out of the threat of knight c7 check. Here we simply bring our knight to e2, developing our pieces. And here I have actually seen that some people with the black side play queen to a6, right? They believe that there's no more knight c7 ideas. The bishop here has too many pieces in between, so there's no threat of certain discoveries. However, queen to a6 is a huge mistake because of the move bishop to f4. And now knight c7 is unstoppable, because the only way to prevent knight c7 would be to bring the knight to a6. But because the queen is on a6, black unfortunately does not have that liberty. For this reason, knight a6 is advisable. Here we can either play knight g3 and bring our bishop out with the same idea, or even better, knight to c1. If you can bring your knight to c1, this is really what you should be doing. Queen a1, bishop d3, and after something like bishop to f5, we can play rook a3, queen b2, and the very, very nice move, queen a5 check, really taking advantage of black playing the move king d8. If pawn to b6, we can simply take the knight on a6. Remember, everything here is defending everything. There's no attack from the queen. And if instead, king to e8, rook to b3, the queen is trapped, the game is won. So this is what you do against c takes d5. The way you punish it is by playing knight b5, playing rook b3, and really eyeing these ideas of either knight c7 check or trapping the queen on the side of the board. For this reason, knight to f6 is the correct move. Here we take on c6, and once again, knight to c6 is an inaccuracy. It's not a mistake like before, but it's an inaccuracy because it gives us the b5 square. Very important though, we do not play knight b5 immediately because this runs into queen takes a2, counterattacking our rook, and the best move we have here is knight c3, followed by queen a5, we're down a pawn. And if we were to enter these complications, after king d8, the rook is under attack, the knight is under attack, this is very, very bad. The way we punish knight takes c6 is by pushing our pawn to d5, forcing the knight to move. If knight e5, we bring our bishop to d4, and if black plays something like knight fd7, this is a mistake because now we have knight b5, and after queen takes a2, remember, our bishop is no longer on e3, it's now on d4. So this gives us the extra option of playing knight c7 and rook a1. Okay, we're attacking the rook, we're attacking the queen. It's really the fact that our bishop is on d4 that we have this luxury. Precisely for this reason, after bishop d4, queen d6 is the correct move, but here we have an opportunity to gain a lot of space. Pawn to f4, we kick the knight back, knight b5, queen b8 is forced. Look how passive black's queen is. Pawn to c4. Just look at this position. We have a phenomenal center. We have a nice bishop. We have super easy development. We have a nice knight on b5. We have the open b file. We simply have a very comfortable position. So this is what you do against knight to e5. What if black plays knight to b4? Here it's important to not fall asleep and play knight b5. Knight b5 looks good, because against queen takes a2, here we can simply take the knight on b4 and the rook is defended. The problem with knight b5 is that black has a phenomenal sacrifice, queen takes e3. And after queen takes e3, knight c2, this is a fork, and if we actually were to go through all these complications, what you need to understand is that this knight is unfortunately trapped on the edge of the board, in the corner of the board, and black will emerge a piece up. So be very, very careful of this. For this reason, bishop to b5 check is the correct move. Bishop d7, bishop d4, right? We are setting up our escape hole of rook a1, but more importantly, we're getting out of this threat. Rook d8, now we can take on d7, and now we can play knight b5. Remember, there's no more of this threat, we've moved the bishop to d4. Queen takes a2, rook b4, queen d5, we're a piece up, we're going to win this game. And finally, if black does everything correct, so going back, you take on d5, if black doesn't take on d5, if black plays knight f6, and if in this position black doesn't take with the knight, if black does everything right and takes with the pawn, right, this now controls the b5 square, even still, we can bring our bishop out to c4, we can bring our knight to e2, and we have a very, very comfortable position. We have very nice development, we can castle short, very, very important, because we do not have the open f file, it makes a lot more sense to play more on the queen side, right? So castle short, you can double on the b file, you play more on the queen side. So that is how you punish queen to b6. Let's take a look at the second move black has, knight to f6. Against knight to f6, very often we are looking to close the position, play queen d2, long castle, bishop h6, take on g7, h4, h5. This is generally what we are looking to do because black is really looking to castle kingside. Black doesn't have any queenside development. Black will most likely castle kingside. So like I mentioned, we play pawn to e5, we kick the knight back and also solidifying our center. Queen d2, setting up the battery. In this position, black might play something like pawn to c5, trying to somehow soften our strong and solid center. That's not a problem, we can simply take this pawn, and even if black takes on e5, yes, we don't have a center anymore, but bishop to h6. And after short castle, we can take on g7, castle long, and h4, h5 is already incoming, while black hasn't even started their attack. Black doesn't have anything developed. So how can this continue? Bishop to e6, pawn to h4, we're looking for pawn to h5, and if black plays h5 themselves to prevent us from playing h5, either we can play bishop to e2 and play for g4, this is one way to open up the position, or what we can also do is simply liquidate into a winning position, knight takes d5, bishop d5, queen d5, queen d5, rook d5, we're a pawn up, we have the open d-file, we have the bishop, we're simply much, much better. Something I would like to mention, I did talk about the move c5, right, to soften up this structure. Instead, a very sneaky move is the move pawn to e6. And here it's very important not to fall asleep and play bishop h6. This would be a massive blunder because this allows queen h4 check, picking up the bishop. Right, remember, we played the fantasy variation. This diagonal is always going to be very, very weak. For this reason, if black plays e6, we first castle long, and after c5, now we play bishop to h6. Short castle, we take on g7, we can take on c5, pawn to h4. And even if black takes this pawn on e5, pawn to h5, the computer gives about +1, our attack is crashing through, the game is essentially already lost. So that's everything you need to know against knight to f6. Just to recap quickly, we're looking to play e5, lock the center, queen to d2. If black plays e6 in this position, first we castle and then we go for our typical idea. Remember, if e6, bishop h6, black has queen h4 check, which picks up the bishop. And if instead black plays c5, this is never dangerous. We can simply take on c5. And if knight takes e5, bishop h6, we can take on g7, castle long, h4, h5. We have a very, very comfortable position, a very nice attack. Now let's have a look at the final move black has, d takes e4. This is the most common move from the black side, and very often we play very similarly as we would against knight f6. We find a way to lock the center. We're looking to play queen d2, long castle, bishop h6, h4, h5. Something to be very mindful of though. In this variation, black can play b5, b4 before we have the chance to go for our attack. If this is the case, it doesn't make sense to castle long right into black's attack. Instead, if black plays b4, it's much smarter to rotate this knight to c5, really taking advantage of this weak square, and then find a way to castle short. And then we simply say, yes, you have an attack on the queen side, but I have all of your weak squares under my control. So how can this look like? Against d takes e4, we recapture with the pawn, regaining a huge chunk of the center. In this position, black can play something like pawn to e5. We lock the center with d5, knight to f6, queen d2, cd5, ed5, short castle, long castle. We are looking to play bishop h6, h4, h5. If black knows what they are doing, they can play into a forced line which begins with knight g4. Okay, here we play bishop to g5 and black has the incredible move queen takes g5. This sacrifices the queen, but black has bishop to h6 to their disposal. But even in this forced line, we can take on h6, we can play knight to f3, and just look at our position. Black's knight on h6 is extremely misplaced. We have the d5 pawn, this is actually a passed pawn. We have the optimal setup, right? Our rook on d1 is protecting the pawn, right? We can simply just bring this guy down the board. Bishop c4, bring our rook to e1. We have a very, very nice position. So that's if black enters this very forced line. Black can also play knight to f6. Here it's important not to play the move pawn to e5. Yes, this does lock the center, but your position is unfortunately overextended. You're not going to have enough time to play queen d2 long castle. Black will be actually faster to create some play in the center. For example, knight d5, we take on d5, queen d5, we can even play pawn to c4, but after queen e4, queen d2, black is first to strike with the move pawn to c5, really undermining our center. We weren't in time to play bishop h6, unfortunately. So be careful of playing e5 prematurely. Instead, it's much better to play knight to f3, and if black castles, we play queen d2, b5. Now we can play e5, because if knight d5 takes, bishop h6, right, we are first to strike. If instead of knight d5, knight g4, here we can simply play bishop to f4. We are threatening in this position to play h3, which actually traps the knight. And if b4, like I mentioned before, black's attack is faster than our attack, so it wouldn't make any sense to castle long. Instead, we bring our knight to a4, we're looking to post on c5, bishop e2, short castles. Remember, we do have this option of h3 to trap this knight if black is not careful, and we simply play this in a bit more of a positional manner. So this is basically everything you need to know against d takes e4. We recapture, gaining a huge chunk of the center. Black can either play e5 or knight f6. In the knight f6 variation, it's important to not play e5 prematurely, otherwise black will have play in the center. And against pawn to e5, there we can play d5 to lock the center up. And even if black enters into this very forced line, knight f6, queen d2, takes on d5, e d5, short castle, long castle, knight g4, even in this position, right here, we have a passed pawn. This knight on h6 is very misplaced. If anyone's playing for a win, it's white here. With all that being said, we have reached the end of this video. Just to recap quickly, after g6, we play knight c3, bishop g7, bishop e3. This is basically forced. Black now has three options, either queen to b6, d takes e4, or knight to f6. Against de4 and knight f6, we are looking to find a way to close the position, play queen d2, long castle, bishop h6, h4, h5. In the d takes e4 variation, it's very possible that black plays b5, b4 before we have the chance to start our kingside attack. If this happens, we play knight to a4, we rotate our knight to c5, taking advantage of this weak square, and we castle kingside. We do not castle queenside right into black's attack. And finally, against queen to b6, we play queen d2, we sacrifice this pawn, we take on d5, c takes d5 is a mistake because of knight b5 followed by rook b3 with these ideas of trapping the queen. If instead knight to f6, we take on c6. Once again, if knight takes c6, this gives us the b5 square, and even if black plays everything right, we play bishop c4, we play knight e2, we have the open b file, we're looking to double rooks, we have a very comfortable position. With all of this in mind, we have reached the end of the g6 variation of this masterclass. We only have one final episode to go, which will cover the move queen to b6. Once again, I will mention the PGN file is the first link in the description. I made sure to annotate it. You should be able to download it. There shouldn't be a problem. If there are any questions, feel free to leave a comment down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and see you guys in the final episode.